Well, welcome back to the Anti-War Room. Tom Andrews from One Without War here with Darcy Scott Martin from True Majority. Welcome back, Darcy.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Darcy is a lobbyist extraordinaire for the good guys up on Capitol Hill, and we're broadcasting from Washington, D.C., where this week, it's the first day of April, Darcy, Congress is back after a 2-week break, and Congress is getting ready for the Cecil B. DeMille production. General Petraeus and Ambassador Crocker come to the Congress next week, next Tuesday and Wednesday, the 8th and 9th, to testify before Congress. And this is all part of this, of course, this choreographed scenario where they come and tell us how good things are going, and then the president requests $102.5 billion. And just in case you might not have seen the local newspaper here in Washington, D.C., which you probably didn't if you live outside the Beltway, but Politico, the headline, GOP to go on Iraq message offensive. And there's a picture of Minority Leader John Boehner of Ohio saying that the Congress, the Republicans in the House and Senate, are going to start this week with a major media offensive in advance of the Petraeus testimony, and then, of course, they will be using that to support $102.5 billion in the supplemental. Darcy, how is this going to go down? We're in the middle of a recession. This is a $3 trillion war. I would think that people out there in the country might start thinking, you know, maybe there's a better way for us to be spending our money.
Indeed, and I think that a lot of the pressure and the news media exposure we're getting about the foreclosure structure and how we're going to be paying for that as taxpayers is making us feel a strong sense of kind of being burdened on every side. However, for anyone who's been following this war for the last 5 years, we just recently passed the 5th year anniversary. I think people have noticed the lack of willingness in the congressional circles to put any kind of restraint on this spending. So part of the strategy is certainly PR, which is, you know, bring in as many people to say fabulous things are happening as possible to justify the expense. Typically from that news point, then there's a pivot to we can't leave the troops out without this money. We can't let our military be let down in any way. And so that's usually the next kind of song in the chorus that goes on. So by the end of the month, we will see this bill being debated in Congress. It oftentimes gets strung with little pieces of candy that are pieces of legislation that people really want passed that add some appeal because they know the bill will pass. There will be a certain coterie of Democrats who will be adamantly against this spending, and even one or two Republicans, although already now one of the Republicans who has long been an anti-war Republican lost in his primary during an earlier part of the year, Wayne Gilchrist in Maryland. So there has been punishment and retribution for being against this war on the Republican side. That being said, you know, it's a kind of a pretty traditional process. There will be a lot of grandstanding. In the end, there is a 90% chance that this piece of legislation will pass.
Okay. So, and what the Republicans are doing now is choreographing. And, you know, despite all of the failings of the Bush administration at their art of statecraft, no one can criticize their art of stagecraft. And, of course, the stage is being set. Now, what we're doing at Win Without War today, this afternoon, is that we're having a news conference call pulling in from Yale University, General William Odom, and from California, General Robert Gard, and we're going to be doing a pre-buttal to the testimony that General Petraeus is going to be making. And in that pre-buttal, these two generals, very well respected. General Odom was the head of the NSA under Ronald Reagan. General Gard was the president of the National Defense University. They're going to say today, not only did this surge fail, but it also set us back, that it's actually been counterproductive to creating stability and security in Iraq. It's creating more of a problem. Part of the reason is because we're as General Odom has described it, we're renting militia. We've gone to these Sunni warlords and we say, listen, we'll give you lots of money, we'll give you arms and weapons, just don't attack us and help us with our cause against al-Qaeda. So we've solicited all these individual fiefdoms and chiefs. They're arming themselves. They haven't compromised whatsoever. There's been no accommodation by the Maliki government to any of the concerns and issues from the rivalry. So what we've done is we've caused a pause in the civil war. The various combatants in the civil war are using it to rearm themselves, and as we saw in Basra just last week, the complete failure of the Maliki government to go in and stabilize that country and take over the Basra from the Mahdi army and Muqtada al-Sadr, of course, shows the political weakness of the government and Maliki. So no matter how you cut it, according to these generals today, the surge was a failure. The surge has set us back, and we're no farther along 1 year later, more than 1 year later than we were when we started the surge. In fact, we're even farther back.
After the sheer might strategy was unsuccessful, then we've gone to a pay-to-play strategy, which there's no way out for that. Are we going to stay there forever and continue to pay them? Once we adjust that strategy, the void for funds and weapons will appear again, and the fighting will return. So all of that being said, back in the congressional aisles, that the argument will be a lot more about how many benchmarks are being met and what requirements were asked. And so really all those need to be viewed with a lens of, what is really happening here as a long-term strategy that's going to make us able to leave eventually.
And of course, the key to that strategy was, let's create the stability so that the various parties can compromise and create the political accommodation necessary for stability. And of course, none of that has occurred. There's been absolutely no progress with that political reconciliation. We have on the website an open letter that we've launched, the Win Without War Coalition, to the Congress about this $102.5 billion appropriation. Our various member organizations are on board, and we're asking individuals to sign this letter. You can do it right on our website or any of the organizations that are on the top of our website, StandUpCongress.org, and sign this letter. And basically we're saying, listen, if you want to spend this money, spend it on getting our troops out safely and securely. Spend it on a diplomatic surge to create stability in the region. Spend it on eliminating military bases, permanent military bases, and spend it on closing Guantanamo Bay and ending torture. And Darcy, I understand that there are candidates for Congress who are picking up on this theme.
It's interesting because the specific letter relates to funding issues and how we would like to, Congress, which actually has the power of the purse, spend their money, but candidates who aren't yet in office, so therefore don't have that control yet, are still trying to figure out how best to explain their positions on Iraq. And a number of Democratic challengers who are kind of coming into the game, not having actually served in Congress, have followed up on many of the points in the letter. They don't actually relate to spending, as those people are not yet in the position to deal with money, but they do follow up on diplomatic surge, closing Guantanamo, all the points that we feel are strongly the best strategies for creating a successful end in Iraq. They've created a platform, and they're getting other candidates to sign on to it so that they feel like they're speaking from a position of power and a position of knowledge when they talk to their constituents about what they would like to see happen when they arrive in Congress. For us, the success is that we know we have advocates coming in from day one with the points that we want already outlined in their platforms.
So extremely important for particularly those of you who are in congressional districts that are very, very much in play, where the races are very well contested, is to follow the positions of both the members of Congress when they have to cast the vote on the $102.5 billion and challengers that are out there. What is their position on this $102.5 billion? So recapping, it's a very big month this month in Washington, Darcy. This week, the media wars start on the Petraeus testimony. Next week, Petraeus and Crocker testify before Congress on the 8th and 9th, and then following that, we're going to be seeing the appropriation come to the floor. When can we expect to see a vote from Congress?
That'll be a strategy issue, but I doubt that it'll be by the end of the month, but early in the next month, I would expect it to be
so late April, maybe early May. Contact your member of Congress and let them know. Sign our open letter to Congress. A lot to do this week. We'll see you next week back here in the Anti-War Room.